Hi, I'm Nikki Hendrickson with Advanced Turf Solutions. I'm here today to talk about spotted lanternfly. We are concerned about spotted lanternfly because it's an invasive insect. It can kill some of its host plants. It has a wide variety of hosts, things like maples, poplars, willows, walnuts are just a few of its hosts. It is a piercing sucking insect that'll feed on the sap of the plant. The feeding can actually cause death of things like grapes and tree of heaven, which we might not be concerned about that one. It is also an invasive plant, but the feeding over time will weaken other host plants. So over many years of feeding, it can make it more susceptible to diseases, to environmental stresses. It'll also create a lot of sooty mold. So the insect itself, since it's a piercing sucking insect feeding on a lot of sap, will excrete honeydew, just like our aphids and like some of our whiteflies, things like that, and scale insects will excrete honeydew. So the honeydew is very sugary and is a great substrate for sooty mold. The sooty mold, when it's on plants, can actually limit photosynthesis, which can harm the plants even more. We also get sooty mold on any other substrate that it lands on. If you have patio furniture or even a bluestone or brick patio underneath, you will get sooty mold growing all over that, and it can be very difficult to clean up. Spotted lanternflies spread primarily by humans, by us. They do have the capability to fly. Young ones will actually, the nymphs, let's say, will actually climb up a tree and then they will jump or fall off and float in the air to land on a different tree to start feeding on. They do this relatively often. The adults, while they can fly, primarily feed on the same host tree. They don't move that much. But we often transport their eggs. They will lay eggs on just about any flat surface. So they'll lay eggs on any kind of outdoor equipment, on outdoor furniture, on lawnmowers, on rocks, on smooth bark trees, on firewood that wouldn't have any bark. So it's when we move this stuff around, that is primarily how it's being spread. So when you have spotted lanternfly, we really want to look for the egg masses, which the eggs are laid 30 to 50 at a time. They're laid in 4 to 7 columns that are about an inch long. When they're first laid, they put a little waxy coating on them, and they'll look a little different when they're first laid than when they've aged over winter. They lay eggs in the fall, the nymphs hatch in the spring, typically in April through May. So we look for the eggs. We also want to look for the nymphs and adults when it gets later on in the summer. The nymphs are brightly colored. So when they're young, they have 4 instars of nymphs. The first 3 instars are black with white spots. The adults are very pretty, I think, for an insect. But the adults are tannish with dark spots, and then that has a little speckled band on its front wings. The hind wings will have, towards the top of those hind wings, will be brightly colored, bright red with black spots, and then it'll have little bars of white and black. So we're actually going to look for the insects themselves, and we're also going to look for the sooty mold and the honeydew. Honeydew will also bring in other insects. Things like ants and wasps are really attracted to honeydew. They're going to feed on that sugar. Just because you have honeydew and sooty mold doesn't mean you have spotted lanternfly, but it would be something to look for. If you see spotted lanternfly, you can do a couple of things. One is called the 1866 No Exotic number, EXOTIC. That is a USDA number, and our main point is we want somebody to come out, to be able to confirm that this is what the pest is. You could also contact your local extension agency or your local land-grant college. Here in Indiana, that would be Purdue. We could contact the Purdue Extension, the Purdue Entomology Department, and they would also be able to go to the right person to be able to confirm our sighting. If you have spotted lanternfly, we're going to do a couple of things. If you see eggs, since they're laid on flat surfaces, you can easily scrape them off, squish them, and kill them. If it's later in the year, in the summer, where you're noticing nymphs, we can either just suck them up, kill them, squish them, or if you want to use a chemical option, with nymphs, we primarily use a contact insecticide, something like bifenthrin. Because they move a whole lot more than our adults and the host range is quite large, it's a little hard to go out and just treat the one tree and think that you're going to get them all, especially for systemics. So we tend to do contact insecticides there to try to contain them. If you are noticing adults tend to feed on the same tree, even though they have the capability to fly around. I would use something like Safari for adult control if you'd rather use that versus a contact. Safari is a systemic that'll go up the tree fairly quickly. So you can actually get it up the tree and control those adults. They're probably not going to fly away and go to another tree since they would all be on that same tree. We can control them that way. As with any chemical control, make sure that you are not spraying any flowering perennials, ornamentals, or trees. We do want to be safe and be environmentally responsible.